My name is Daniel. I'm 32, and if you saw me walking down the street, you'd probably think I had everything under control. I'm the manager at a mid-sized tech company. Not exactly glamorous, but enough to keep me busy. And man, am I busy. It feels like I can never catch my breath. Meetings, emails, deadlines. It's the same routine every single day. Weekends barely exist anymore because I'm still taking work calls or trying to handle last-minute issues. My life has become this endless cycle of spreadsheets, client calls, and stress. Hobbies? I don't have many, to be honest. I tried the gym, reading, even picked up a guitar once, but nothing could hold my attention. My work demands everything from me, and by the end of the day, I'm too drained to do much of anything else. So, when I need a break, something to take my mind off work for a while, I do the only thing that helps me unwind. I go clubbing. Once or twice a month, I'll throw myself into some random club in the city. It's a habit I've picked up over the years. Nothing excessive, but just enough to let off some steam. There's something about the energy in those places, the lights, the music, the people. And yeah, sometimes I drink a little too much, loosen up a bit more than usual. Maybe it's the alcohol, maybe it's the atmosphere, but when I'm there, I'm not just looking for small talk. I want something more. That's when I really let go. It's a strange contradiction. By day, I'm the professional guy, the one in a suit and tie, always in control, always on top of things. But at night, in those clubs, it's like I become someone else. I don't plan it, but somehow, I'm always seeking that rush. Something to break the monotony and make me feel alive again. Last Friday, I was feeling especially drained after a brutal week. I decided to hit up this club downtown that I'd heard about from a coworker. The vibe was a bit different, low lights, a DJ spinning some old school beats, and a crowd that seemed to know how to have a good time without things getting too wild. I wasn't there long when I noticed him. He stood out immediately, not because he was loud or flashy, but because he had this quiet confidence about him. He looked around my age, with sharp features and an intense gaze, the kind that makes you stop and take a second look. Normally, I'm not one to make the first move, but there was something about him, this air of mystery or challenge. So I walked over, trying to play it cool, and offered to buy him a drink. He accepted, and soon we were chatting. His name was Alex, and he had this way of talking that made everything sound interesting, even if it was just small talk about the music or the vibe in the club. As the night went on, we ended up at a quieter corner of the bar, away from the crowd, and that's when things started to feel different. He wasn't just some random guy at a club. There was a depth to him, something intriguing that I couldn't quite put my finger on. We were talking, but it was like the words didn't matter. There was this tension, this connection, and I couldn't ignore it. At one point, Alex leaned in, close enough that I could feel his breath against my ear as he spoke. His voice dropped to a low murmur, and I felt a shiver down my spine. It was as if everything else in the room faded into the background. I couldn't tell if it was the atmosphere, the music, or just him, but I felt drawn to him in a way I hadn't felt with anyone else. We talked about random things, jobs, places we'd been, a little about our lives. He'd lived in a few different cities, always looking for something he couldn't quite explain, and I related to that restlessness. I've always felt like I was searching for something too, though I never knew what. Talking to him, it was like he understood that without me even having to say it out loud. As the night wore on, I realized I didn't want it to end. There was this comfort in being around him, mixed with an excitement that felt new and unexpected. Eventually, he suggested we leave, maybe find a quieter spot to keep talking. Part of me hesitated, unsure where things were going, but I decided to go with him. It felt right, like I was supposed to. We stepped outside. The cool night air, a refreshing contrast to the warmth inside. We walked without any real direction, just talking and laughing, losing track of time. Every now and then, Alex would pause, his eyes searching mine, as if he was trying to figure me out. Those moments felt heavy, like something unspoken lingered between us. Eventually, we found ourselves by the river, the city lights reflecting off the water. There was a quiet beauty to the scene, and for a moment, we stood there in silence, just taking it all in. Then he turned to me, his face serious, as if he wanted to say something important. Before he could speak, though, I surprised myself by reaching for his hand. I didn't know where the courage came from, but it felt like the right thing to do. He looked down at our intertwined fingers and smiled, a small, genuine smile that made my heart race. It was such a simple gesture, yet it felt incredibly intimate. We stayed like that, just holding hands, letting the silence say what words couldn't. There was a connection between us, strong, undeniable, and more intense than anything I'd experienced. In that moment, I knew that meeting Alex wasn't just chance. It felt like fate, like he was meant to be part of my life, even if just for that night. As we stood there by the river, holding hands and letting the weight of the moment settle around us, Alex finally spoke. His voice was soft, but filled with an honesty that caught me off guard. "I've always believed that we meet people for a reason," he said, looking out over the water. "Some people come into our lives and leave a mark that changes us forever. And sometimes, that change is exactly what we need." I felt the words sink in, resonating with something deep inside me. It was like he could see past the walls I'd built, understanding things about me I hadn't even fully admitted to myself. There was a vulnerability in his gaze, a willingness to be open and let me see him as he was. And for some reason, I felt safe enough to do the same. We talked for hours about everything and nothing, sharing pieces of ourselves that we'd kept hidden from the world. It was raw, it was real, and it was exactly what I'd been missing. With Alex, I didn't have to pretend. I could just be myself. When the night finally drew to an end, I knew that saying goodbye wouldn't be easy. But as he pulled me into a hug, holding me close, I realized that whatever happened next, meeting him had changed me. The days that followed were filled with moments of reflection. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted in me. A quiet understanding that life wasn't about finding the perfect moments, but about embracing the imperfect ones. Alex has shown me that in the most unexpected way. We continued to talk, to share, and to learn more about each other. Every conversation felt like a step closer to something that neither of us could quite define, but both of us were beginning to feel. There was no rush, no pressure, just a shared space where we could exist without fear of judgment or misunderstanding. And then, one evening, as I was walking home, I realized something. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for, the thing I'd always wanted but never knew how to ask for. Connection, real and unguarded. I didn't need to search for it anymore. It was here, in the quiet moments between us, in the way we spoke without speaking. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't planned, but it was enough. And as I looked up at the night sky, I knew that whatever happened from here, I was no longer the same person who had walked into that conversation by the river. From that night on, things between Alex and I continued to grow in a way that felt natural, like a gentle current pulling us closer without either of us trying too hard. We still shared laughs, still had those deep, meaningful conversations. But now there was something more, a deeper understanding that neither of us had to explain, because we both knew exactly what the other was feeling. It wasn't always easy. We had our differences, of course, moments of doubt and miscommunication, like any two people would. But there was something grounding in knowing that we weren't trying to force it. We were simply allowing the connection to unfold as it was meant to, trusting that wherever it went, we would go together. Then, one day, Alex told me something that hit me in a way I hadn't expected. "You know," they said, looking up at the stars, "I think this might be the first time I've really felt seen. Not just by you, but by myself. Like, I'm finally getting to know who I am in this moment." It was in that moment that I realized something powerful. The connection wasn't just about the two of us. It was also about the way we had both found parts of ourselves through the other. It wasn't about completing each other, but about becoming more whole, individually and together. And for the first time in a long while, I felt at peace with the uncertainty of it all. It wasn't about knowing what would happen next. It was about being present in the now, in this shared space of growth and understanding. And that, I realized, was enough. Fast forward a couple of months. The momentum gained from embracing her authentic self begins to show in the small, everyday moments. Alex's confidence starts to shine through. She opens up more to the people around her, and it's evident in the way she walks, talks, and even how she carries herself in every interaction. For the first time, Alex isn't hiding. She's real. She's free. I couldn't help but admire how she embraced every part of who she was, even the parts that once scared her. Alex had never been one for taking risks, but now she was diving into the unknown with a bravery I hadn't seen before. It was infectious, that energy, and it made me question, what am I doing with my own life? Why am I not embracing the change that's waiting for me? One evening, while sitting together on the couch, Alex turned to me and said, "You know, I feel like I've finally come home. I've been running from myself for so long, but now I can breathe. I can just be me." And it feels like freedom. It wasn't just her words. It was the way she said it, the conviction in her voice, the truth in her eyes. For a moment, I thought about how many people go through life never truly feeling that sense of home within themselves. How many of us are still running, hiding, afraid of what we might discover if we stop pretending. I looked at Alex and realized something that had been there all along, but had only just clicked. The person we become when we embrace who we really are is unstoppable. Alex had found a strength she didn't know existed, and now, so had I. We were both on a path to discovering new parts of ourselves, and there was no turning back. The journey wasn't without its struggles. There were moments of doubt, setbacks, and challenges. But what made all the difference was the realization that we weren't doing this alone. We had each other, and we had ourselves. The bond we shared was more than just the connection between two people. It was the connection to the best versions of ourselves. And that's when it hit me. Embracing who you truly are isn't just about accepting the good parts. It's about accepting all of it. The imperfections, the mistakes, the flaws. Because in the end, those are the things that make us human. And when we allow ourselves to be truly seen, we allow others to do the same. I looked at Alex and smiled. You know, I think we're finally exactly where we need to be. She grinned back, squeezing my hand. We always were. And with that, we moved forward. Together, unstoppable. Authentically, unapologetically, and fearlessly ourselves. No more pretending. No more hiding. Just living.